The chalk dust, a faint rainbow on the gray concrete of the driveway, puffed into the warm afternoon air with each deliberate scrape of Lily's hand. Her tongue poked out from the corner of her mouth in concentration, her brow furrowed as she outlined a lopsided, smiling sun. The metallic click and drag of her forearm crutches laid carefully beside her was a familiar sound in the quiet cul-de-sac, a counterpoint to the distant hum of a lawn mower and the twittering of sparrows in the oak tree that shaded their front yard. Sunlight fractured by the leaves danced across her faded blue jeans and the bright pink casts on her legs, a testament to the latest in a series of surgeries meant to give her a little more freedom, a little more of the childhood that cerebral palsy seemed so determined to steal. My name is Mark Jenkins, and Lily is my daughter, my world. Watching her from the porch, a half-finished report on municipal traffic flow patterns, forgotten on the wicker table beside me, I felt the familiar swell of pride and a fierce, protective love that was almost a physical ache. She was 10 small for her age, but with a spirit that could fill a stadium. The quiet joy she found in her chalk art in transforming our mundane driveway into a canvas of fantastical creatures and vibrant landscapes was a daily reminder of her resilience. But a cold knot of unease often tightened in my stomach. Had I done enough to make this world safe for her? Was this quiet street truly the sanctuary I'd hoped for? The tranquility was shattered by a sound that always set my teeth on edge, the aggressive growl of an oversized SUV engine driven too fast, too carelessly down our residential street. I didn't need to see it to know who it was. Karen Evans, chairperson of the Harmony Creek Homeowners Association. Her black behemoth of a vehicle, always polished to an intimidating gleam, was a common sight, usually accompanied by a scowl and a complaint. There was something almost predatory in the way she patrolled the neighborhood, a self-appointed guardian of aesthetics, but her vigilance always felt off, misdirected. I stood in instinctive tension coiling in my gut. Lily, absorbed in her son, seemed oblivious. The SUV rounded the curve, not slowing its tires, spitting gravel. It was heading straight for our driveway. "Lily!" I shouted, my voice raw with sudden fear, a terrifying replay of a recurring nightmare. She looked up, startled, her eyes wide. The SUV didn't deviate. It didn't slow. For a horrifying, heart-stopping second, I saw Karen's impassive face through the windshield, her gaze fixed forward. The vehicle mounted the slight incline of our driveway apron. There was a sickening thud, a screech of chalk-covered crutches skittering across the concrete, and Lily's small cry of pain and surprise as she was knocked sideways, her body hitting the ground hard. The SUV continued for a few feet, its tires rolling directly over the space where Lily's legs had been, moments before crushing her vibrant chalk sun into a smeared, unrecognizable mess before lurching to a halt. My mind, usually analytical and calm, a prerequisite for my job as head of the City Police Road Safety Division, went blank with a white-hot rage. I was off the porch in an instant, clearing the steps in a single bound, my forgotten report scattering pages across the lawn. "Lily, oh my God, Lily!" The recurring nightmare had become real, and the guilt that I hadn't been faster, hadn't foreseen this exact moment, clawed at me. Sarah, my wife, burst from the front door, her face a mask of terror, a dish towel clutched in her hand. She'd heard my shout, heard the thud. She reached Lily first, dropping to her knees, her hands hovering over our daughter, afraid to touch, afraid of what she might find. Lily was crying, not loud, wrenching sobs, but the quiet, hiccuping gasps of shock and pain. "My arm," she whispered, cradling her left wrist. "It hurts." The driver's side door of the SUV opened, and Karen Evans emerged. She was a woman in her late 50s, impeccably dressed in crisp linen trousers and a silk blouse, her blonde hair coiffed into a helmet of lacquered perfection. For a fleeting moment, something unreadable flickered in her eyes. Was it shock or something else? Then it was gone. "Oh, my dear," she said, her voice surprisingly soft, almost concerned. "Is she all right? I didn't see her there. These children, they dart out so quickly." I stared at her, momentarily thrown by the apparent solicitude. It felt wrong. "Didn't see her?" I seethed, gesturing towards the bright chalk, the discarded crutches. "She was right here, Karen. You drove right at her." Karen's face hardened slightly. "Well, driveways aren't meant for playing. It encourages unpredictable behavior. Perhaps this can be a lesson about staying in safer play areas." Her eyes then flicked towards the crushed chalk sun. Such a mess, too. The mask had slipped. The initial, perhaps feigned concern was evaporating, replaced by that familiar pursed-lipped disapproval, that chilling detachment. "A lesson!" Sarah shrieked, her voice trembling with disbelief and fury. "You hit our daughter. You call this a lesson?" "I am the HOA president," Karen stated, drawing herself up as if that title conferred immunity and supreme judgment. "I have a responsibility to maintain standards and safety in this community. If children are going to be where they shouldn't, they need to learn about consequences. I was merely highlighting a potential hazard by demonstrating the importance of clear throughways." Her gaze was cold, now challenging. "Frankly, some residents are far too permissive." My training kicked in, then a cold wave of professionalism, washing over the initial inferno of paternal rage and guilt. My eyes scanned the scene, noting the position of the SUV, the skid marks from Lily's crutches, the disturbed chalk. My gaze flicked up to the small, discreet camera mounted under the eaves of our porch, a device I'd installed not for burglars, but precisely because of the escalating pattern of Karen Evans's erratic behavior and her known tendency to twist facts. It had a clear, unobstructed view of the entire driveway. It would have captured everything. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. What if my professional instincts had inadvertently set a trap that my daughter fell into? "Karen," I said, my voice now devoid of emotion, icily calm. "You are aware, I presume, that I am the head of the City Police Road Safety Division." A flicker of something, surprise, unease, crossed her face, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "And," she challenged, her chin lifting defiantly, "that doesn't exempt your family from HOA regulations or common-sense traffic safety. If anything, you should be more aware of the dangers." It means, I continued pulling out my phone, that I have a very clear understanding of vehicular assault, reckless endangerment, and leaving the scene of an accident even if you only moved a few feet. It also means I know precisely how to document this. I was already dialing. And it means that this entire incident, including your explanation, has been recorded. Her eyes darted to the camera, then back to me. For the first time, a genuine crack appeared in her composure. "Recorded," she whispered, the color draining slightly from her face. "Crystal clear, Karen," I said. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a call to make. Don't go anywhere. That would be another felony." The next hour was a blur of sirens, flashing lights, and the arrival of my colleagues, their faces a mixture of professional concern and shock, when they realized whose daughter was involved. Lily was carefully examined by paramedics. Miraculously, aside from a sprained wrist, severe bruising, and a terrifying fright, her physical injuries weren't as catastrophic as they could have been. The crutches had taken the brunt of the impact, crumpling beneath the SUV's tire, likely saving her legs from being directly crushed. But the emotional trauma I knew would be a deeper, longer-lasting wound. Sarah stayed with Lily, her arm around her, murmuring reassurances, her eyes never leaving our daughter's pale face, except to shoot daggers of silent fury at Karen Evans. Karen, under the watchful eye of a uniformed officer, a young man named Peterson, attempted to maintain her air of indignant authority, but it was rapidly crumbling. She alternated between protesting her innocence. It was an accident, I would never intentionally harm a child. Blaming Lily, she shouldn't have been there, and then bizarrely trying to portray herself as a victim of my aggressive overreaction. She demanded to speak to my supervisor. She threatened lawsuits. Officer Peterson listened patiently, his expression unreadable, occasionally murmuring, "Yes, ma'am," while methodically taking notes. I provided my statement, handed over the footage from my camera, and watched as Karen Evans, the imperious HOA president, was formally arrested. The charge for now was aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, her SUV, and reckless endangerment. As they read her Miranda rights, her face was a mask of stunned disbelief, quickly morphing into outrage. The crisp linen suit seemed to wilt the lacquered hair, suddenly less imposing. "This is an outrage," she sputtered, as handcuffs were snapped onto her wrists. "I am a respected member of this community. I dedicate my life to its safety. You can't do this. I lost my own son David to a reckless driver. I would never—" Her voice choked a sudden, raw emotion, breaking through that momentarily silenced everyone. Then, just as quickly, the fury returned. "You'll hear from my lawyer. Apparently, ma'am." Officer Peterson said quietly, "We can." The drive to the hospital with Lily bundled in Sarah's arms in the back seat was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by Lily's occasional sniffle. Karen's outburst about her son echoed in my mind. It was the first I'd heard of it. Did it explain her obsession? Her warped sense of justice? Or was it a desperate manipulative ploy? The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by a leaden exhaustion and a simmering, deep-seated anger now complicated by a sliver of something else. If her pain was real, it didn't excuse her actions, but it added a tragic, disturbing layer. Our move to Harmony Creek 2 years ago had been an attempt to find a peaceful, supportive environment for Lily. Then Karen Evans was elected HOA president. It started subtly notes about mailbox shades, therapy balls. Then it escalated complaints about Lily's specialized bicycle, her chalk drawings lowering aesthetic standards. Each interaction couched in bureaucratic jargon felt targeted. One particularly ugly incident occurred a few months before. Karen confronted Sarah Lily nearby. "Mrs. Jenkins." Karen had said, her voice dripping with false solicitude. "While I appreciate your efforts, perhaps a more private setting would be appropriate. The constant visibility of her equipment and her condition can be somewhat distressing for some residents. We must consider the overall harmony and the potential for distraction to drivers." Sarah, incensed, retorted, "My daughter's condition is part of who she is. If that distresses anyone, they don't belong in a harmonious community." Karen's parting shot. "The HOA board will be reviewing guidelines. We expect full compliance." That was when I truly understood the depth of Karen Evans's intolerance, or perhaps her deeply warped crusade. We'd consulted a lawyer then who advised us that most of Karen's concerns bordered on discrimination. But the stress had taken its toll. Now, in the ER waiting room, the weight of it all settled. This wasn't just about chalk. It was about Karen trying to erase Lily because Lily didn't fit her rigid, perhaps trauma-fueled vision of Harmony Creek. And when quiet intimidation hadn't worked, she had escalated. "How could she mark?" Sarah whispered, her face pale. "Even if she lost someone, how could she do that to a child?" "I don't know, Sarah," I said, pulling her close, though my own mind was a storm of conflicting emotions. The thought of using my position, my knowledge to ensure Karen faced justice felt righteous, but a small voice whispered about the optics, the potential for accusations of a vendetta. Karen had already tried to frame it that way. But she picked the wrong family, and she picked the wrong dad. Lily's x-rays confirmed a fractured ulna and severe soft tissue damage. She was kept overnight. I drove home alone. The house felt cold. Lily's abandoned chalk lay scattered, a poignant memorial. The dark smear where the SUV had rolled was a brutal scar. I took more photos, my professional detachment, a thin shield. The next morning, the story was leaking. A discreet call to a trusted news contact providing only confirmed facts ensured initial reports were accurate. Karen was released on bail later that day, a hefty sum. A restraining order barred her from contacting us or coming within 500 feet. Small comfort. The following days were a whirlwind. Supportive neighbors dropped off meals. Mr. Henderson, an elderly widower whose grandson Timmy often played in the street, came over grim-faced. "Mark," he said, "that woman, she's always had a bee in her bonnet about safety ever since her boy David. But this is too far. Anything I can do, you say the word." Others were cautious, their sympathy tinged with fear of Karen's known vindictiveness. Lily struggled. Her arm was in a new purple cast. Nightmares plagued her. The sound of a car made her jump. Her chalks lay untouched. We found a child psychologist. Each session was a painful step. Lily once asked me, her voice small, "Daddy, why did Mrs. Evans hit me? Did I do something wrong drawing there?" The guilt twisted in me anew. "No, sweetie," I choked out. "You did nothing wrong. She did." A week later, the first of Karen's counterattacks, an HOA violation letter for unapproved driveway art and improperly stored recreational equipment. Lily's damaged crutches now evidence. Signed by the secretary, it reeked of Karen. "She's trying to intimidate us," I told Sarah, my jaw tight. "To discredit us." Our lawyer, Jessica Ramirez, was furious. "This is witness intimidation. It strengthens our case." Then the rumors. Lily was faking. Mark Jenkins was abusing his police position. A minor misunderstanding. Karen's insidious narrative spinning was at work trying to isolate us. I saw the doubt in some eyes. This was when my professional and personal lives began to dangerously intertwine. My investigation into Karen the individual was for the detectives. But Karen Evans, the driver, and HOA president influencing community rules, impacting road safety. That was my turf. I started digging into past HOA complaints under her tenure. A pattern requests for speed bumps denied aesthetics cost. Complaints about aggressive driving, including descriptions matching her SUV, dismissed. Karen advocating for removal of excessive road signage. One evening, sifting through archived HOA minutes, I received an anonymous email. Subject: Karen Evans. You're not the first. The sender, a concerned former resident, warned that Karen had been involved in a similar incident years ago, a child on a bicycle, a near miss, but it was hushed up. She has ways of making things disappear, and people too. Be careful. She sees everything. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about Lily anymore. A few days later, another disturbing event. I found one of my car tires slashed in our driveway overnight. No note, just the silent, menacing damage. Lily saw it and burst into tears, convinced the bad lady was coming back for her. The anonymous threat echoed. Sarah was terrified. "Mark, this is escalating. Is this because of your investigation? Are you putting us in more danger?" The question hit hard. Was my pursuit of justice, my use of professional knowledge backfiring, making things worse? The line between protecting my family and abusing my position felt perilously thin. Then Officer Peterson called. "Chief Jenkins, something you might find interesting. I was reviewing traffic cam footage from the park entrance on Willow Creek Lane from a few weeks back related to a minor fender bender. I noticed something else. Mrs. Evans's SUV. It made a very aggressive turn, very close to a kid on a bike. Little Timmy Henderson, actually. The kid wobbled, almost fell. It looked intentional, like she was trying to scare him. The angle isn't perfect, but it's unsettling." Timmy Henderson. Mr. Henderson's grandson. The anonymous email. My heart pounded. This could be it. This could be the prior incident. Jessica Ramirez was energized. If we can prove a pattern of reckless or intentionally intimidating behavior with her vehicle, especially involving children, her defense crumbles. But a public traffic cam might not be enough to show intent. We need more. The anonymous email had mentioned Karen sees everything. Security cameras. Peterson had noted Karen had several on her property, but he hadn't had cause to look further. Now, there was cause. The slashed tire, the anonymous warning, Peterson's observation about Timmy Henderson. Detective Miller, leading Karen's assault case, agreed it was enough to start looking for grounds for a warrant for her surveillance systems. The next week, Karen's lawyer contacted Jessica. A substantial monetary settlement for Lily's injuries in exchange for dropping all criminal complaints and signing an NDA. They want to make this go away, Mark, Jessica said. It's a significant amount. For a moment I hesitated. End the stress, the fear, secure Lily's future. But then I saw Lily's frightened eyes, the shadow in her smile. And I thought of Timmy Henderson and the anonymous emailer. This wasn't just about money. No deal, Jessica, I said, my voice firm. She needs to be held accountable for everything. The decision felt right, but the weight of it, the path ahead, was immense. The HOA violation notice for the chalk art still hung over us. Karen, through the board, pushed for a formal hearing at the upcoming annual Harmony Creek Community Day. A public shaming, no doubt. I saw it as an opportunity. Detective Miller's team, armed with the Henderson incident and the anonymous tip, worked tirelessly. They found the concerned former resident, a man named Arthur Bellwether, who'd been driven out of Harmony Creek by Karen's relentless harassment after he'd challenged her HOA budget. He confirmed Karen's obsession with surveillance and her vindictive nature. He also remembered the incident with the child on the bike years ago, a different child before Timmy. But he had no hard proof, only Karen's smug dismissal of it. His testimony, however, added to the picture of her character. The breakthrough for the warrant came from an unlikely source, Karen's own IT consultant, a young woman named Chloe, who had recently quit after Karen had shortchanged her on a major invoice and then threatened her with a lawsuit over a non-disclosure agreement. Chloe, approached by Miller, provided an affidavit detailing the extensive, sophisticated, and partially concealed multi-camera surveillance system Karen had her install and maintain, including high-zoom covert cameras and a networked server with massive storage. She also mentioned Karen's specific instructions for positioning some cameras to overlook public streets and even neighbors' yards. Crucially, Chloe revealed Karen had robust encryption on her server and could remotely wipe data. Time was of the essence. A judge signed the warrant. The search was conducted swiftly the night before Community Day. Miller's team, accompanied by a police tech expert, Anya Sharma, hit Karen's house. Anya worked furiously against the clock, knowing Karen could be alerted. They found the server, and Anya managed to bypass the initial security layers and begin imaging the drives before any remote wipe command could be executed. Terabytes of footage and video editing software. The climax was set for the HOA meeting in the park. Community Day was strained. Many offered support to Lily, who clutched Sarah's hand, wary. Karen Evans held court near the HOA booth, smug, unaware. As dusk fell, the HOA meeting began. After rushed agenda items, Karen Evans took the microphone. "And now," she announced, "the unfortunate business of bylaw violations threatening our harmony." She looked at us. "Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins regarding driveway aesthetics." Before she continued, Jessica Ramirez stood. "Madam President, before that retaliatory complaint, my client Mark Jenkins has a statement on a far more serious matter impacting this community." A murmur. Karen's eyes narrowed. "Highly irregular Mr. Jenkins is not on the agenda." "Actually, Karen." I said, stepping to a microphone set up by a supportive board member. A technician connected a laptop to a large projector. This is entirely relevant. Meaning of this, Karen demanded. The community deserves the truth. On screen, my porch camera footage, Lily drawing, Karen's SUV, the impact, Lily falling, Karen's callous lesson remark, gasps, Karen's face drained. Edited a distortion. He's framing me. Is it Karen verified by police forensics? Untouched. I paused. This is Karen Evans's speed enforcement, striking a disabled child. Mr. Henderson stood, voice shaking. We saw you, Mrs. Evans. We saw you drive at her. Others murmured agreement. But that's not all, I continued. It seems Mrs. Evans has a penchant for surveillance and for selectively presenting evidence. The technician switched inputs, images from Karen's own recovered footage. Hold on! Karen interrupted, her voice sharp, regaining some composure. Perhaps you should see what really happened. My cameras also captured the incident, and they show a slightly different story. She signaled to her own aide, who fumbled with another laptop. They show a child deliberately placing herself in the path of a slow-moving vehicle, perhaps encouraged by a father eager for a lawsuit or to discredit an HOA president he dislikes. The crowd gasped again, confused. My heart hammered. What was she playing at her video started? It was choppy, oddly framed. It did seem to show Lily moving towards the driveway edge as the SUV approached, almost like she was waiting for it. It was cleverly cut, a sickening manipulation. You see, Karen said triumphantly. A setup. A setup, Karen. I countered, my voice dangerously calm, as Anya gave me a subtle nod. Or expert editing, like the editing you did on this footage. The screen behind me changed. It showed Karen's SUV weeks earlier bearing down on little Timmy Henderson on his bike near the park entrance. Timmy swerving, terrified. Falling. Karen's SUV, not even slowing. The footage was from her own camera, one she'd positioned overlooking that public junction. The raw, unedited file. Then another clip, Karen at her computer, meticulously editing the footage of Lily using the software found on her server, a smirk on her face as she spliced frames. This, ladies and gentlemen, I announced, is Karen Evans. Not only did she hit my daughter, but she also has a history of using her vehicle to intimidate children, and when caught, she doctors evidence to blame the victim. We found terabytes of footage, spying on neighbors, orchestrating petty vandalism like slashing my tires just last week. Yes, Karen, we have that too. Manipulating evidence. 2 uniformed officers, Detective Miller among them, moved forward. Karen Evans looked wildly around her face, a mask of fury and panic. Her supporters were silent, aghast, stepping away. Conspiracy, she screamed. He's abusing his power, deepfakes. That footage of the Henderson boy. It was an accident. He rode out in front of me, my son David. He died like that. I was just trying to make sure Timmy understood the danger, to protect him. Her voice cracked with a desperate, twisted sincerity that was almost pitiable, if not for the malice behind her actions. The digital forensic team is quite thorough, Mrs. Evans, Detective Miller said calmly. We have the raw files of your cameras. We have your editing software. We have witness statements including from Mr. Bellwether and Chloe. And we have probable cause for several more charges, including the prior reckless endangerment of Timmy Henderson, evidence tampering, multiple counts of harassment and conspiracy. Karen Evans, you are under arrest. This time the fight drained out of her. Handcuffs snapped onto her wrists again. The invincible HOA president, the neighborhood tyrant, looked small, defeated her reign of manufactured trauma-driven harmony, decisively over. The mention of her son, David, hung in the air, a tragedy that had clearly warped her, turning a mother's grief into a weapon against the very community she claimed to protect. The falling action began almost immediately. The crowd erupted not in cheers, but in a collective sigh of relief and shocked conversation. Neighbors, including a tearful Mrs. Henderson, who hugged Sarah, came forward sharing stories of Karen's bullying. The HOA board members allied with her looked pale, offering resignations. In the following weeks, Karen Evans's empire of control crumbled. The investigation, fueled by her own surveillance footage, revealed systemic abuse of her HOA position. She faced a slew of charges. Her bail was revoked. The depth of her paranoia was staggering. She had footage of almost everyone cataloged, annotated. Her twisted justification for hitting Lily, that it was a controlled lesson to prevent a greater tragedy like the one that befell her son, was deemed monstrous by the prosecutors. The Harmony Creek HOA underwent a complete overhaul. Mr. Henderson, with his quiet wisdom and now a personal stake in reforming neighborhood safety, was elected president. The oppressive rules were rescinded, for our family resolution was more personal. Lily's physical injuries healed. Her purple cast came off. Her emotional recovery was the true victory. Therapy helped. One session she drew a picture of Karen, but instead of a monster, she drew a sad face with tears. "Maybe she's just really, really sad, Daddy." She'd said a profound observation from a child who'd suffered at her hands. That evening, she hesitantly asked for her chalks. I watched heart in my throat as she went to the driveway. She didn't draw a sun. She drew a small, single flower. A start. A few months later, on a sunny Saturday, Lily proposed a Chalk Back the Driveways Day. She designed a flyer. The response was astounding. Driveways blossomed with art. Lily, no longer hesitant, covered ours with a sprawling mural, our family neighbors, even a small, respectful memorial flower for David Evans. It was her way of healing, of reclaiming not just her space, but also her empathy. Many neighbors, including some who had initially been hesitant to speak against Karen, joined in. One woman who had remained loyal to Karen almost to the end quietly approached Sarah. I knew about David," she stammered. "I thought Karen was just overzealous because of it. I never imagined. I'm so sorry." Karen Evans pleaded guilty to several charges, including the assault on Lily, reckless endangerment of Timmy Henderson, and evidence tampering. She received a significant prison sentence. Her assets linked to fraudulent HOA activities were seized, partly funding new playground equipment and a traffic calming initiative in Harmony Creek overseen by Mr. Henderson. The air in Harmony Creek felt lighter. The laughter of children, including Timmy Henderson, now riding his bike with more confidence, was the undisputed soundtrack. Lily, now 13, her crutches still a part of her, but never a definition, often led younger kids in chalk art sessions on our driveway. The echo of that dark day remained a reminder of how grief could curdle into cruelty, but also of resilience, community, and a child's spirit reclaiming her sunshine, and in doing so, helping a neighborhood find its true harmony. My guilt over not protecting her perfectly never fully vanished, but it was now balanced by pride in her strength, and the knowledge that sometimes even flawed fathers navigating complex moral lines could help bring about a measure of justice.